everyone, to this episode of Who Gets the China, where we are saving our sanity while helping our parents age gracefully and navigating life with, in some cases, multiple aging parents. And I'm so excited today to have my guest, Cambria Jacobs, with me. We have had the great chance to meet and bond over some work with the Aging Population Initiatives, and both just have a passion for supporting caregivers. And so I'm really excited to have her with me today. Cambria is the daughter to 7 aging parents. Not many of us can say that. And she is really somebody who comes to this caregiving space with a background in startups, a background in innovation, a background in healthcare, a background in wellness, and technology. And so a lot of her professional work is on bringing her expertise as a founder and a innovator together with how do we support caregivers. So she brings a really unique lens that I'm excited to dig into today. Welcome.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
So 7 parents. Cam, we don't get many people that are aging, that are supporting 7 aging parents.
Right. Welcome to Southern California. And divorce and then remarrying and then marry someone whose parents are also divorced and remarried and so on and so on. The most amazing thing is, as we hear, everyone gets to experience aging and their journey so differently. And I actually get to experience it with them because they all are aging so very differently in terms of health, physical, cognitive, financial backgrounds, the amount of stuff and lifestyle, all of them are so different. And the system services, et cetera, that are helpful to them are also equally as different.
So you get the fun of navigating different systems in different locations and from different spaces, different needs, I'm imagining different healthcare systems, the whole thing.
Absolutely. They all have different insurance. And we were talking about this the other day. It's like, gosh, every time I feel like maybe I actually kind of got it, right? I'm like, I think I actually understand how this works. It only works for that one parent. So it's not even necessarily always transferable, but it absolutely gives me more confidence to continue being an advocate, asking the questions that you're insecure to ask because you think you should know them. I mean, that remains to be true for all of them, regardless of the situation. So lots of things that are transferable, but in terms of becoming an awesome daughter and caregiver to someone living with dementia, that is for that one parent now that's living with dementia. The physical ailments, all the other things are different. Financial challenges and how to navigate that, different. So, and all of them have their own challenges and then, bright spots as well.
And we could perhaps have an episode on each parent and talk about what are the unique challenges there.
You, my therapist, we can all do it together.
I've found that more and more there's, setting boundaries, understanding what's acceptable, what can you reasonably be expected to give when you also have your own family, your own work, your own interests. I think for a lot of caregivers, like that's a key frustration that I hear from so many people is there's not enough of me to go around, but I feel reluctant to set boundaries because they're my parents. I love them. I want to make sure that they're safe and well cared for. Like we can't practice boundaries enough, I think, but it's hard.
It is. And my guess is, I don't know if this is the way it is for you, but that's a challenge in my life in general, right? And so it just gets harder and more intense when then you're talking about parents and then you add vulnerability into doing it together. And it just, for me, it's always been a challenge. And I'm like, great. So now this is going to be the time where I'm going to really have to be put to task to honor my boundaries. And in a world where, why do we need boundaries? Because we're really smart and strong and we can solve everything until you realize you maybe can make it a lot better, but you also might die trying.
Right.
Before the person you're actually trying to support. So those
Yeah.
boundaries, yeah, you learn it sometimes in a way that is less than graceful.
And I think that is going to be true for all of us. But part of my goal, and I know your goal also, is let's share our expertise. Let's share our knowledge. Let's share our experience. And maybe people will learn something, or maybe they will just feel connection in that shared experience. And so, whichever people come away with from these conversations, I feel like that's successful. If we're building a community of support among anyone caring for an older parent, then like we're doing something valuable to give back to this community. I know we could pick any of the 7 parents to talk about today, but right now I've been doing a lot of work understanding dementia and working with experts in dementia care. And so I think we wanted to start today by talking most specifically about perhaps, I'm making an assumption, but what I think might be the most acute caregiving scenario you have right now, and talking with about your parent who's dealing with dementia. And I love to ask people, when did you first realize you were a caregiver and not just a daughter for this parent?
Yeah, so it's so interesting, and I couldn't agree more about just learning so much. I mean, I learned so much from you and your journey, and when you shared your learnings, and then all of those that I get the honor of being in their orbit. And it's helped me sort of look back on when that aha moment, right? Of when did I realize there really was a shift? Because I get asked that all the time, like, oh gosh, my mom, she keeps losing her keys, or she'll tell me the same story over and over again. Do you think she has dementia? Um, and and then it's also a reminder that dementia is not the disease. It is a group of symptoms, right? That's also really important. So my mom had a stroke 8 years ago and was diagnosed with vascular dementia. And I also happened to be the only child at that point in time that lived out of state. The rest of my siblings all lived in state, and saw my mom and my stepdad, and they were around them more often. So I do think being out of state, you can see things change, maybe a little bit better perspective, because you're not just, it's not happening gradually, right? All of a sudden you're like, what the heck? Like that
Right.
feels um so I would say there are so many different moments when I look back on what was the moment where I was named a caregiver, um, of which another kind of side. I have a really hard time with the being called a caregiver. Um, it doesn't, I keep trying it on and it just doesn't fit, because for me, and I don't know how you feel, but when people say caregiver, I feel like that's a profession, right? Like you go to school to be a caregiver, you've got like some sort of credentials or a degree, you get paid for it. You maybe have like a hospital outfit on and a uniform, some rubber gloves, like you know what I mean? Like you show
Totally.
up, that's a caregiver. And
Right.
so I almost like weird. And then sometimes I almost feel guilty and like a sham when people say that, because our family, we have it, it's not all, or it's different now, but in the many stages, it was different, where maybe we had a caregiver, which was hired from a caregiving agency, a home care company, come in maybe 15 hours a week. And so because of that, I felt like when people said you're your mom's main caregiver, I'm like, well, I'm not like showering her. I'm not like helping her go to the bathroom. Like that doesn't feel like a caregiver
Yes.
to me. I feel like I'm her daughter who's just more involved in making sure that, she's taken care of. But to me, that doesn't translate to caregiver. So we need to probably, like, as marketers, figure out how to rebrand what
Yes.
caregiving is called as like a
I love
side
it.
initiative.
Yeah, because I've had some conversations with people, and I'll say like I'm a beginner caregiver, right? I'm phase 1. My parents are still in pretty good shape. I
Right.
almost don't view what I'm doing as caregiving either, because it doesn't
And they're
feel
probably a
that
little
serious.
insulted, right? Like my mom's like, I don't need a caregiver. Like, why would I need a caregiver? I'm fine. Like
Yes.
it almost makes them feel like they're not okay. And even though we could say, well, there are some areas you maybe aren't okay, it just isn't, it's not a human word that we just use in everyday vocabulary. It sounds very medical,
Yes, it does. It does. And I
right?
have
And
friends who are in the thick of it and are dealing with gloves and washing and bathing and all those much more acute services. And so yeah, I agree. Like caregiving has become this umbrella term for so
Hmm.
many things, and
I'm
it's
more
probably not
the
the right one.
orchestrator, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and I can look at sort of the conductor, and sometimes I'm up there conducting, and sometimes I'm, you know, in there in the weeds and actually playing. And so I feel like I go back and forth between all of these different phases. I think in the beginning, I almost like a project manager, right? But someone who doesn't have the luxury, or like the chief of staff, right? I don't have the luxury though of just taking a step back and saying, "Oh, you missed that deadline."
Right.
Right. I'm deeply involved and invested in it from a care and emotional perspective, in addition to managing all of the logistics. So I don't know what that word is, but for this session,
I
we're going to go with
agree. We're
caregiver.
going to go with caregiver, but I like care conductor, right? Because you
Yeah.
are bringing this symphony together of all these different types of experts. But agree, caregiver, I don't feel like I own that mantle either, but I've adopted it for the sake of clarity. So agree, there's work to be done
And
there.
yes, yes. And I have like tremendous respect for those that are truly the, you
Mhm.
know, clinical, or however we want to define the caregiving, because the amount of skill, grace, empathy, skills required to be that in its best form is not to be taken for granted. And there are not many of them that I would say check all the boxes. But I would say the first sort of role I realized as a caregiver was advocacy. And I was the first time that my mom, you know, had a stroke and was sent home when they told her she didn't have a stroke. And, you know, I watched the rest of my family feel relieved and shaking their head. Oh, she didn't have a stroke. That's great. That's so great. And I was listening on the phone, and she sounded like she had marbles in her mouth.
Hmm.
And I couldn't be there. And everyone was just laughing and joking and excited to get her home. But I was getting more and more frustrated. And what I realized is there's a bunch of very smart, resourceful people in that room that were very afraid. And they wanted good news, and they didn't want to believe this was something more serious. And so that doctor, for all the misses that were happening right in that moment, that was giving them what they wanted, only to then, you know, come back to the hospital 48 hours later, being admitted for over 3 days, and then going to 45 days of rehab when in fact she had had a stroke. And that was that sort of first moment where all the relationships and everyone in the room, and I was sort of that, the one that didn't fit in. And my brother sometimes will call me the bull in the china shop, but of not being happy that I could see something was wrong, and I had to be the person to say, sorry to rain on the parade, but something is not okay here. And I was the only person that did that, even though I also didn't have all the education of what kind of questions and what was happening. But that was moment one of me um, doing that. And at that same time, coming from a place where my mom and I actually happened to be estranged. So not
Mm.
only was this big moment, but it was also the time of my mom and I were not the closest in that room. And and feeling like, am I the right person? And then realizing it didn't really matter, because I was the person that would make sure that she was going to get the right and best care. And she let me.
Where are you in the birth order in your family?
I'm the So again, with seven parents, we've got steps and this and whatever. But in terms of my mom, who's living with dementia, I am the oldest daughter, and I have a younger brother who's 4 years younger than me. So I'm 53, almost 54, and he's about 50. And then at the time in that marriage, my mom was married to my stepdad. So I had two semi stepsisters at the time,
So the
and they're
classic
older.
eldest daughter has to
Yes,
step in. I mean, I
yes.
am constantly searching for the time when that's not the case, and I know it's not always the case. And I'm
Hmm.
blessed with a younger sister who's great, and you have a brother too who I think steps up also. But
Hmm.
it is just interesting how you didn't really have more expertise than the other people in that room. And in fact, there was an interpersonal challenge at play also. But I just feel like sometimes we step into that role almost unconsciously.
I agree. It's just what we do
Mhm.
and who we are. And you know, that has been the way that I have also led my life. So, and I think sometimes we train people that also, you know, like, because we do show up and we do always take it on. And even if some may appreciate it and some might be annoyed by it, but at the end of the day, they know that we're gonna step up and take it on. And I don't know, do we do ourselves a disservice because we're so much of that we either make it easy for people or they feel like they're not good enough, right?
Right.
Or won't do it at the level.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle, and I'm sure it changes all the time.
Yeah, but we do have to make space for others to step in. Just
Absolutely.
even as a corporate leader, as a business person, right? You might think I can do this project better, but I need to make way for the people around me to step up and in and learn, or else they're never going to
Hmm.
be able to handle it on their own.
Well,
So,
it's team building, right? And I mean, that's why I continue going back and forth between this journey of advocacy and caregiving and how businesses and corporations run, and then how the innovation that we have seen in 90% of our life has never made it into this part of life, whether it's the systems, the services, and even just our family communication, the family operating system. And how we show up in that family operating system is likely very different than the way you show up in your corporate operating system. And as being a smart leader, we all know exactly what you just said is that what is our goal? What is our North Star? How are we all aligned to it? Are we all shaking our heads that, yeah, that's what we're doing? And then going back and defining all of our roles and what we can count on each other for. Maybe there is a very healthy family out there that has done that. I sure as heck haven't
I
met
haven't
them.
met them. I
Yeah.
haven't met them. I mean, some healthier than others, but even in the healthiest family, there's just interpersonal challenge and different priorities that shift over time.
And
So
no
you
one's the boss
right.
ultimately. Like no one has the CEO title. No one has control, I mean, over the budget, right? And who's responsible for the outcomes. And because of that, the clarity gets muddy and you can't really fire anyone.
One thing I want to know with your story, it sounds like your mom really had a precipitating event. She had a stroke that was then misdiagnosed as not a stroke, but then she was back in the hospital. So, was there a slow transition at all to stepping into this heavy duty caregiver mode, or was it all kind of in that instant?
No, it was definitely, I mean, I would say peaks and valleys, right? So in that moment when we were in the hospital, it was like game on, right? And that was when I just realized how much I didn't know and how much my family didn't know and how much we didn't have in any sort of working order. So that was the get curious part, right? Of what do we even need? Like, okay, how do you even, what is a rehab facility? How long does someone have to stay in the hospital to have insurance cover it? What kind of insurance does mom have? What are her wishes? Um, who has all that information? Is there a folder somewhere? And if not, where, should we create one? And where are all her files? And what is her blood type? Is she allergic to something? What medication is she taking? Does anyone know? And the answer was nobody knew. And there were multiple doctors and people were afraid too, right? And so in some weird way, I think it also protected me because that was black and white for me, right? What was happening with my mom was not clear. Yes, she had had a stroke, but what was going to happen next, I didn't know. And that felt scary. But what I did know is I could do paperwork, right? I could find doctors' records, I could get names, I could build a Google sheet, I can get my hacks going. And that gave me this strange sense of control in some way of organization. And I leaned into that. So that I would say, and then after getting curious, I got educated, right? Because step one was mom has had a stroke, she's going to a rehab. And that in itself of learning at what are the rehabs? Why is one better than another? What does an experience even look like when you send someone there? All the things, retention rates, what her day would look like, what we can bring in, what the standards are. I mean, I felt really lucky in a lot of ways that here we had made it, that my mom was 72 years old and we had never been put in this position before. How lucky
Hmm.
we were to have had healthy enough parents that we weren't in the system and we didn't know it, because there are many families that are like, yeah, welcome to our world. We've had cancer, we've had this, like we've been living there for 10 years, or children, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so that was like my first, and then no one will give you that diagnosis of that's when I also learned they can't tell you all those questions I just asked. They don't know the answers. Maybe she'll be better. Maybe she won't. But nowhere in that journey did anyone ever say, yes, she had a stroke and she has vascular dementia. I wouldn't learn that that actually was a result of the stroke until months later. And that so the recovery and the clarity of that communication,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me forever to be able to pull this out and me repeating to say, okay, what is the actual diagnosis in which we were addressing right now? I had to be that direct. And lucky enough, the neurologist that we had been referred to happened to be someone I had the honor of going to high school with.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so I could actually say, Dr. Clark, aka known as Taryn in high school, what is going on? So my mom has a stroke. Does she have anything else? But I felt comfortable saying that to this amazing neurologist because I had that personal connection. Now that's given me the confidence. I do that with every doctor, regardless of, is this clear? Let me repeat back to you the 5 things I think I heard. Is that right? That would then just be the foundation of, get curious, get educated, and then the third is get involved. And everything, I would say, depending on where that status is, falls into those 3 buckets at some phase.
I love those buckets. They're nice. They're
Mm-hmm.
discreet. I can wrap my head around them. And like you said, I can crush an Excel spreadsheet and give me a research task. I'm all about it.
Yes.
Give me those things to do all day long. And then I start to get my feet under me and feel like, okay, now I at least know what the ground looks like. But it's also just so hard when you have that emotional component layered on top because every choice you make, all the information, there's really a need to get it right because your loved one is, their life depends on it. Really. I mean, not even
Yes.
exaggerating. It
And
does.
like your parents, right? Is it even my role? Am I overstepping my bounds because my mom had a husband? I think it depends on the people and the roles, right? Of what kind of personality, and trying to have that discussion with he had been my stepfather for 20 years at this point. It's that discussion of, hey, Bill, like this is what's happening with mom. You know, I'm organizing all of this. Does that feel okay to you? Is this something that you would rather be doing, and me kind of take a step back? And again, dealing with, there was already some hard relationship stuff going on. So is this me being a bulldozer? Am I going back and recreating family dynamics that maybe aren't welcome? And having the courage and confidence to just, call it out early on, I think helped. And, the kind of man that he wound up also being diagnosed with Alzheimer's a couple of years ago, and we lost him a year ago, January. And so then I too became a caregiver for him at a later stage. And to see him look at me when he knew things were going south for him and to say, as long as you're here, Cambria, I know it's going to be okay. So we really traveled that journey together, and he was grateful for most of it. And when I would push him too hard, there were certain things he didn't want to know. And he was grateful that I was taking care of it, but he also didn't want to deal with it, didn't want to see it, and didn't want to get dirty. Um, and I had to learn that that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as long as the outcome we're all aligned with, where this is going to make mom come out and be the best she can be for where she is, and we can align on that, then that was good enough. But it was messy along the way.
This journey, no matter where you are on it, you're learning to get into it and ask the hard questions and just be more curious. I think we can easily make a lot of assumptions about a lot of different things. It's not the best plan to just carry forth with those. It's always a good time to pause to care, as we sometimes say at my work, take
Mm-hmm.
a break, ask the question. You might be scared to ask that question, but you're better off asking it now than making an assumption that turns out to be wrong.
Also, the way we communicate is so different. So you and I in our corporate land, right? We're sending emails and we're on Slack and we're doing like 1,000 things at once. We've got people that in our families do not operate like that on their daily basis. So while it's easier and I'm more comfortable sending an email update of, this is what I learned, these are the paths, these are our options, next. To me, I'm like, they are so lucky, right? And what it feels like to them, how I send information and the way they receive it is, oh my gosh, that is
Yes.
so overwhelming. Could she like give me 5 bullet points? Like, I'm not going to sit down and read this. And then that makes their anxiety go up and they just shut down.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that, and I will say it took me ridiculously too long to figure that out. If I could go back today, that get curious and get educated, those same hard conversations that I had with the doctors, I wish our family would have done them together. Even if it was uncomfortable, I wish we would have all sat down at that kitchen table and walked through some of those early days of our roles and actually had those conversations. Even if like I still got the blind stares and no one wanted
Right.
in,
Right.
I never gave them a chance. And looking back, like, what was that doing for me? Right? Was that feeding something for me of wanting to be needed, wanting to be great at something until it was obviously so much and trying to find that healthy balance?
I feel like you must be sitting on my shoulder as I'm writing emails and making phone calls and sending texts. I mean, it's just the way that we're wired, I think.
It
And you and
is.
I have that in common. And it's not a bad thing, but you need to be able to check it at the door. Again, just to that same theme of like, go ahead and ask. Why don't we just ask sometimes? I don't
I
know.
know.
It's
Because we
hard.
assume it feels easier, I think.
Yeah.
Like, aren't they just grateful I'm getting it done?
I
Right? And they're like, sometimes, but
know.
sometimes you just make everything feel so complicated or you already have it that I actually don't even know how to partner with you.
Right.
Right. And I don't know about you, but I would love to say that's only with my family. I think that's just one of my ongoing challenges in life is to learn that,
Yeah.
right? Is take a breath. We have a dear friend, his name's Todd McGuire, and he used this on me once, and I just have it stuck with me that everyone and everything is a teacher. Some of what you want more in your life and how people show up, they lead saying, gosh, I want to emulate that person, their style, their consistency, their conciseness. And others show up shut down, closed off. And that's a teaching moment of what I don't want to be, right? Of thank you for showing me that lesson on how not to show up. And I think I had so many of those, but it was always, I can fix this, I can change this. And that's not always our role. Some of it
Right.
is being smart enough to get curious and see the lessons all around and be smart enough to figure out how to learn and optimize within those. And I think that's the thing that has allowed me now to thrive and survive in navigating supporting aging parents.
And it reminds me, I think it's that Maya Angelou quote. People won't remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And I try to remind myself, like, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's the 100% right choice that we're making in this moment, but how do people feel about that choice
Mm-hmm.
might be more important. And sometimes that's hard to grapple with.
The other thing is that as a society, we're always about we're going to do whatever we can to get better, right? To be healthy, strong, etc. And sometimes that maybe doesn't need to be the goal. Maybe it isn't getting back to exactly how you were before, the 100% version of mind, body, spirit. Maybe actually that isn't the end goal. And that's a big shift of actually just feeling safe and secure and
Hmm.
okay is actually a win.
Yeah.
And 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 doing whatever it is at all costs to have the best outcome possible, maybe how we've defined best as the outcome actually isn't the right outcome at all. And to walk backwards and to think of like one, I mean that's a big aha, right? Especially I think it happens all the time when we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, right? But as we start to get older, it's like, I'm not trying to compete for the Olympics here, people.
And it's hard to let that go as the person who's aging and also the person who's caring for that aging adult because you can sometimes see that they don't want to let go of that.
Right. And what do they want? Right. If
Right.
they're able to tell you in a way that like they're all, cognitively there and they're very clear on what they want the outcome, different, right? I'm all in then to support that or to have the other conversations of have we looked at another side? Not
Right.
because it's the right thing, but let's just have the conversation. There's in a world of no bad ideas. What would that look like? With my stepdad, I mean, he never, to the day he died, he would never say out loud that my mom had vascular dementia.
Oh,
He continuously said she had a stroke and she was on her recovery and she was going to get better. And who am I? And we had these conversations and we had that moment where he knew that I knew that he knew that I am not going to squash an 85-year-old man's hope for his life.
right.
And if he needed to live in that land of denial, I was not going to be the person that forced him out of it because it was giving him something that he needed also. And so I operated under that, under that sort of the cloak that he gave me of
Hmm.
we're going to go so far. And then if there's the stuff you've got to do in dementia land, you go do that without me.
Yeah, that hits for me. I'm just thinking of similar things with my parents. I mean, it's slightly different, but my dad's always been a big traveler and he would love to continue to travel in the way that he always has. And we're kind of at a place where is that possible? We're not sure, but nobody wants to say that it is or it isn't. Sometimes you just have to let there be an unknown.
I too have done both of those. The travel one, which I know is gonna, they were hell bent on doing the thing, right? And I had all the reasons why I did not feel in my gut that was smart, safe, not just being a paranoid older daughter, but for everyone else on the road. How are they going to check in? I mean, all the things, right? And I got the feedback, you need to back off and just let them do this.
Yeah.
And it was an utter disaster. And after that, you know what? He never did travel again. But what they experienced in those 48 hours, my heart still hurts thinking about it because but maybe that's how they had to learn. And luckily no one was hurt. But if they were both cognitively with it, I wish that I could have sat down with them and said, okay, you guys want to go to the Sting and Billy Joel concert in San Diego. This is the way you've always done it. Here's some other ways. Could we consider, what do we think about this? Not can you afford it? Can you not afford it? That's a different discussion. Let's just look at the options that are
Right.
available. And then we'll figure out how we can solve that. Like, does any of that sound good? So if you could get there and you never had to drive, if you could get dropped off at the front door, if someone could bring your bags into the hotel room, would that feel good? Like,
Yeah.
let's make that happen.
My parents also live in San Diego and they went to the symphony, which they've loved to do, but haven't done it as much recently for a variety of reasons. And so my sister and I were talking about it like, oh, this is great that they went to the symphony, but like, how did they park? How did they drive? How did that work? And so when he came home, he was like, oh, we took Uber. It was great. And it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for adapting. Thank you for trying it a new way and seeing that that way could be successful because that opens
Mm-hmm.
other doors for you to realize, oh, this Uber thing is fine. I can do it
And it
here.
actually
I
was
can do it there.
easier.
Yes, it's actually easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was his own idea, right? So that
Yeah.
gave him his independence and pride. And maybe that was a teaching moment for you too, is that maybe you do tee up those ideas and then let him take it because that gives him the independence and respect he needs for himself.
Right.
That is so important because,
Yeah.
he's the dad,
Yeah, totally.
right?
Yeah, you
And my
can't.
parents do that to me all the time. Like, thanks, Cambria. I know you care and your heart's in the right place. But when my dad uses his Cambria Ann voice, I know it's zipit.com
Yes,
and
case
sit
is
down.
closed for now. Right. We're moving on. What's
Yes.
next? To your point, having that family conference of, okay, I'm going to make some mistakes. I'm going to be too pushy about certain things. I really want you to get a new washer dryer because I really think it's going to be safer for you. You're not ready for that right now? Okay. I'll back off for 6 months and then we'll come back and but knowing when to just put the idea out there and then walk away. It's hard. Not gonna lie, it's hard.
It is. And maybe then you learn that, okay, we're not going to do this for 6 months. If in 6 months you had to do that, what would be your top one, two, and three choice? And so when it happens, when it blows up, because I had the same experience, and then my mom and I wound up being in the laundromat on Balboa Island doing 12 loads of laundry. Um, you have the backup plan, and you can then from the laundromat call the Home Depot and they show up, right?
Oh
And you're like,
gosh.
gosh, I'm so glad we didn't do this 6 months ago so we aren't in this
Yeah.
position.
Accepting that there are many possible outcomes is important. And I've also learned from talking to some of our experts who you and I share the acquaintance of, like one of the beauties of getting older is that as an adult, we can accept more possibilities, more gray area.
Hmm.
Lots of things can be true. So I'm trying to lean into that knowledge.
And to not do the I told you so moments,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And being resentful when you're at the laundromat and I would say in years 1 and 2, I was less graceful of, well, this is weird. Like we didn't talk about this 10,000 times and now look at us, right? Like who wants to be that person?
I know.
And when
Yeah.
when I show up like that, I don't even like myself.
No.
I'm like, oh. So I
Stop it.
learned on no big deal, no big deal.
Yeah.
How lucky we are that we have the resources to buy a new washer and dryer.
Right.
How lucky
100%.
we are that they now deliver and that they do the install. And I've got a phone that works. And so those are the silver lining moments. And then my mom and I were at a little old, a laundromat on Balboa Island from the 1960s, watching kids riding their bike in the ferry. And we got to leave and go get Balboa bars in the middle of it. How lucky we are that we had all of that.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to get there to be able to even do that, other than, holy crap, are you kidding me? One more thing. And if everyone just would have listened to me, we could have avoided it. Where's the win in there?
Right.
Right. And there's lots of them. It just isn't the win the way we were always used to defining them. Just like the outcomes of health and success and everything, they change in this third of life. I don't know. Maybe that's the gift too, is it makes us be more open, more flexible with other people that are hard in our life and other things that are hard, because there isn't just one way and one right way to do it and one outcome. And the sooner I think we can all get comfortable with that, the happier we will all be.
So, one thing I want to make sure we talk about for a minute is the changes that you've made to your life, because I know a lot of us have to uproot residences and jobs and routines. And I know this has been something that you've had to tackle. So, I'd love for you to share what changes you and your family have made to your life to accommodate your role as caregiver, in quotes.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. So in the beginning, when this was all happening, mom was home from rehab and we were sort of out of danger zone. I also happened to have a big corporate executive job that required me flying from Denver to Munich direct every 6 weeks. And then being over in Germany from anywhere from 48 hours to 2 weeks, right? So, and also being the only woman on a senior leadership team, and one of two Americans, so pressure cooker times 1,000, let alone the travel impact and all that did for my family, of which I had two kids that were in high school and middle school. I had been remarried for a handful of years, so lots going on just in that own little microcosm. And then when things started shifting and it was obvious that we were not stable with mom's care and that was requiring more and more, I would say the workforce and the understanding not only of a European based company and their understanding of what that looked like, but also American benefits of what does it look like to be able to support the sandwich generation, as they refer to us now, right? Of what could that really look like? And I did not have that support in this company, um, to be able to have more of that balance. And so I put on some blinders there, like mom's not in the hospital, she's doing all right. We got guardrails, like it's not, nothing's on fire. COVID hit, and that changed everything, right? And I would say for me, that was the point of no return, and really getting my priorities of, yes, what is important, what is needed to financially support our family, and what is something that is feeding my career and my aspirations and my dreams, and what does the rest of my family beyond just my nuclear family really need? What does that look like, and who are those people? And it was a really hard and challenging time, but I knew that my mom needed me, and I made that decision with my husband to say, I need flexibility. I know I've always been your partner here, as this level and this kind of earner. We will be okay. I need to take a step and a pause, to get to right the ship. And I don't know what that's going to look like. And so I consciously made that decision at that time is to take COVID, right, and be able to really start to dig back in and kind of do the reboot from a few years ago of where are we on all of this stuff and do a big check in. And my husband then had the pressure of the main breadwinner at that point in time, of which I had never done as a woman, being a single mom for a while with two children. That was sort of who I was too. So that was a big change. And then as things progressed, talking to my mom and my stepdad about me coming to California, which is where they lived from Colorado, every 6 weeks to do check-ins, because what I found is right about the 6 week mark was when stuff started going south again. So if I could make a routine schedule that where they planned on it, we could make appointments for the house, for their doctors. We almost could kind of stay ahead of it and things seemed to be more manageable. I was covering a lot of those costs myself, right? The planes, the rental cars, whatever. So having that conversation with my parents of, hey, I'm willing to do this and I'm making these changes with my job, but we need to talk a little bit about how maybe financially, can you cover my flight if I'm doing this?
Yeah.
Is that something that we can make work? I'm in to do it, but this can't be an additional expense on top of
Right.
me making a decision to earn less. And then that continued for a few years. And then when really big changes happened, my husband and I had made the decision to actually reverse commute, as we call it, by being in California. And we now work here 5 months out of the year and have figured out what that looks like. Lots of huge, big changes, and some of them really disruptive. When I came out here and was in California for crisis, and then 2 weeks became a month, became 2 months. That was not intentional. That was very reactionary, and I could barely breathe. But now having this year where we can actually look at all these lessons learned and how could we do it to be more intentional, that's really helped. But it's been an 8 year journey to figure out what that looked like. So incredible changes. And for my children, right? Because 8 years of their life, I have a 24 and a 21-year-old, 8 years of their lives has been them watching mom be a caretaker for their grandmother. And what does that take away from them? For me not being able to be there in the way that fully present, and them being my children versus sometimes
Right.
some would look at as my mom.
I was back visiting a friend who they've made some major changes to their life to care for their parents. And again, it's what are you modeling for your kids? What are
Mm-hmm.
what are you trading off? What do you want to show them? And I think a lot of us look at this with a lens to the future of how do we want to be perhaps differently prepared or communicate differently? What do we want to set as the expectation for our own children? And for me, that's some of where this who gets the china comes into play, because something that I really discovered again during the pandemic when I was home, sort of preparing for some additional caregiving opportunities, was like, oh my gosh, we have a lot of stuff. Like this house has got a lot of stuff. It wasn't even the house I grew up in, but it was the house my parents have lived in for a long time. And if we wanted to stay there for a long time, we needed to clean some closets out. It's started me on a little bit of a journey of prioritizing what stuff matters to me. What do I want to keep?
Yes.
So that my kids don't have to spend hours of their life cleaning out my house someday. That may happen, that may not. But I'm curious, like, do you have any who gets the china moments related to like stuff, downsizing, moving, family memories that come to mind for you?
It's interesting because my mom is in memory care now, and we still have my childhood home. Lucky enough for us, and my brother and I sort of in our families go back and forth and share it. So we are in that in a different way. This has been our home since I was 10 years old. So you can imagine, and
Yes.
mom did do a good job at cleaning out at some point in time, but oh my gosh, new roof, termites, my megaphone from cheerleading still here. I mean, all the things, right? And
Yeah.
so there have been parts of this journey that were heart-wrenching going through it. And then I have other parts that have been so much fun. And then there's other things that I can tell what's in it. And I've decided to save for when she's not here, that it'll be a gift to my future self. but I feel like I've got it now into a more manageable state. And that's like 3 different trips to the dump later with the junk removal guys. And I know there are people that have way more stuff than we have here, but it was a lot. And then fast forward to another set of parents that had built their 10,000 square foot dream house with the casita and all the things that, and there was, then downsized to a 5,500 square foot home. Didn't really get rid of a lot from that 10,000 square foot home. And they are so well organized, very organized, but the amount of stuff and every single thing is very special to her.
Yes.
It is not junk, it is her treasures.
Yep.
And so learning and working with some estate folks on how do we go through that process for her more than it is even for us. And everything they own is just beautiful items. And I've had the challenge of, hey, I would love it if you didn't shop for the rest of your life. You did not go into a mall to buy us things. You just shopped in your gorgeous house.
Yeah.
And give me that platter. Wrap up your linens and your napkins or your extra set of sheets that
I
are like
love
probably
that.
nicer than I would even buy.
Yeah.
So let's thread up, right? Like,
Right.
reset, upcycle
Will
and
she do
have
it?
that be for everyone. No, not
No,
really.
not yet. Too soon.
Too soon. But
Well,
yeah, we're
you've
all
planted
in
a
it.
seed. I mean,
I
you
planted a
have planted
seed.
the seed, and I think my mom's always like, "You want that thing? Take it home. Take it home." And I keep saying I'm going to drive my car out there and bring home because, of course, there are lots of things that you do want.
Yeah, for sure. And the
But
stories. And there
yeah,
are
the
so many
stories.
companies now. There's companies like Artifacts in Colorado. There's companies like Ember that's in Southern California, where they're talking about how can we start to put the stories behind the things, the real meaning behind them. It's not the china, right? It's the
Right.
memories that it was grandma's and before and how it was made and how can we capture that without actually having the china? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Um, and right now, I feel more like I want to know all the stories so I can share what they are, even if we don't have the thing anymore, because I feel like my mom's memory is gone.
Right.
And without that, and my aunts are getting older, so the stories reside in my cousin and I. And if we don't know the stories, then they just end. And that to me is like really tragic. But then I also don't want to put all that pressure on myself either.
I
So,
know.
so what is the balance but I love the freedom of having less. And like you, been able to go back to our house now. And I was like, you know what? I've been living half the year in California now, 2 years. I haven't touched those things. Bye bye. And it's
Bye-bye.
given me that freedom to be
Yeah.
able to do that. And that's another gift,
It
right?
is another gift. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many gifts if we just know where to look for them, I think.
When we're not in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, you need some time
Mm-hmm.
to breathe and to take stock. And like you're saying, I mean, you never know when things are going to turn on a dime, right? And nice for you that you've had some time with your mom where she was still able to engage and stay connected and talk about things. And I
Absolutely.
think like we have to seize that opportunity while we have it. And sometimes it feels weird to put that out there, but I've said to my mom, like, let's go through your curio cabinet. What matters? Tell me the stories. What
Tell
is
me the
important?
stories.
You know?
And if they can do it in a way where we're doing it because we really genuinely care, not because, hey, you're going to kick the bucket one of these days and I want
Right.
to make sure I know. So, and that day could be tomorrow. So let's go through it. Instead, it come at it of like, really respect that you did this. It's really special to me. And I know you've told me, but I've been so busy. I don't know if I actually really paid attention. Could we have a cup of tea and sit down and do that? And if it can feel like an honor to them and a gift to you, then all of a sudden that's a shift of I'm not telling you this so when I croak you're going to know. It's that this is like one of those moments and that you'll remember for the rest of your life, and you get all the stories out of it.
That is
Mm-hmm.
so well said. I could not say it better myself. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that you've learned on your journey that you want to make sure to share with others?
The biggest thing is it's okay to not know everything. People are really hungry and curious, and the things that you have learned along the way of supporting your aging parents, there are others that will really benefit. Even the smallest little nugget And if you're open to sharing it, there's lots of people ready to learn, and it makes us all feel so much less alone. And the humanity of all of it, right, is we have lived in this age of this anti-aging that we were all kicking and screaming and fighting against living this third instead of really embracing it and optimizing it. And the business side of me is like, hey, 8 economic sectors, have you looked at the population and what percentage is going to be over 65 and the amount of dollars that are flowing in from that population? How about we start to innovate for this really important customer segment, not because it's the nice thing to do for old people, but it's smart business. And there's a lot to be made by innovating for the customer experiences this age group deserves. And we're going to be hot on their heels. And that has been a big thing for me, is just the awe and shock about the lack of innovation and inclusion for once you turn 65.
Mm-hmm.
And so many more. I mean, in terms of workforce, we're going to have 5 generations of families working in the same workforce here soon. And can you imagine, how do we build, yes, employee benefits, and how do we build and live for a 150-year-old life, finances, all of it? That, if I look at where I've been for the last 8 years and you would have said that, I've been like, forget it, I'm out, peace out. Like 75 sounds good to me. But I'm starting to learn and pull together that we can do a lot from all of these learnings, and we get everyone on board. We can start really innovating to make this 100-year life worth living and raising children and grandchildren, but it's not the way we're doing it today. So there's some big reform that needs to happen, and it's people like all of us showing up and sharing our experiences that'll show that we're not just 1 and 2 people, we're a trend. And there are multiple dots on that data curve. So more than anything, I'm hopeful and grateful of the humanity that I've been able to experience with other people that are walking the path, even though all of our paths are different. And I'm learning every single day. So it keeps me young at heart.
Agree. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to learn from our shared experience. So I so appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me today. I'm excited to see where we're going to go from here.
Absolutely. So, much more to talk about.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for listening to this episode of Who Gets the China? Who Gets the China is written and hosted by Kirsten Mao, produced by Aaron Bryce of Blue Ogden Productions. Our theme music is composed by Greg Fellman of Wind Sand Productions. Our cover art is by Jen Beam of Gigawatt Studio. For more stories and expert advice, follow along on Substack or at www.whogetsthechina.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might appreciate the conversation. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.